an eye how the students are progressing, how they are doing their homework, classwork, and everything. And definitely, this also helps the student also to ask any sort of doubt without any hesitation in the classes only. है ना? ये बढ़िया है ना, right? Yes. Now, coming to the third thing, we have a very good dedicated academic mentor team who continuously track how the students are going, right? Hi, Mamta, how are you? So how the students are progressing, what is their understanding capacity, what is their how is their competitive approach, in which topic they are lagging, which topic they need this improvement. So everything will be tracked, and accordingly you will get the feedback. This will help you to improve yourself. That's very important, right? Improvement is really important. Hi, Gurbir. Good afternoon, beta. And now let's move on to the fourth thing, that is the most important thing, that is we cover the syllabus as per your school examination schedule. Like if you have any sort of topic which is already done in your school and it is coming in your school exam, but we have not done it till yet, so you can tell it to us. We generally handle this type of custom request that we will go move on those topics first, and then we will move on to the rest of the topic. Right? Hi, Kushi. Okay, so these are the different general features of Swiflearn. Now let us see what are the key features over here. The first key feature is we maintain a detailed progress report of each and every student. And when will you get this progress report? Before the PTM. जैसे आपके स्कूल में भी PTM होता है, इधर भी PTM होता है. So over here we will discuss about the feedback, whatever is there in the progress report. And definitely, if your parents have any sort of doubt, any question, any clarification or feedback, they can share with us. We are always there to solve all your problems, right? Hi, Armaghan. How are you? Okay, chalo. Now let's move on to the second thing. It's amazing that we have the SATs that happens in every Sunday from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. You will be able to perform over there, and you will get to know what is your rank all over India. Okay, your rank along with your name will be given on the leaderboard. ठीक है? Now coming to the most important thing. That is, you already know that practice makes a man perfect. So after completing each and every topic, what you have to do? You have to do the question answer, right? You have to solve all the different types of question answer. जैसे ऑब्जेक्टिव सब्जेक्टिव सब आते हैं आपके स्कूल के एग्जाम में, तो वैसे ही क्वेश्चन आंसर सॉल्व करना चाहिए ना, right? And that will help you to understand all the concepts in depth and very nicely, right? So we have an unlimited practice test over there. Both objective and subjective questions are there. Objective में जैसे आपके आते हैं true false, match the column, MCQs and all, you will get those type of question. And subjective questions will definitely for 3 marks and 5 marks, you have to write the answer, and accordingly we will give the feedback. कैसे आपको full marks लाना है subjective answers में, कहाँ diagram include करना है, कहाँ chemical equation include करना है, हम सब ये ट्रिक्स एंड टिप्स आपके साथ शेयर कर देंगे, so that you will never lose any of the marks in your school exam, right? So this is all about Swiflearn and the key features. So to experience all these things, what you have to do: book a free trial class and experience all this feature. And those who have not subscribed, please subscribe the channel and press the bell icon so that you will never miss any of the update of the upcoming session. We will meet in every session, and do not forget to like, comment and share also, right? Yes. Now let's move on to the chapter which we will discuss today. So in the previous chapter, previous session basically, we have already started with this chapter, which is present in class 9th ICSE board. So the chapter's name, as you already know, that pollination and fertilization. Okay, so we have already discussed about a lot of the pollination. What is pollination basically? What are the different types of pollination? What are the different conditions which favor the self pollination as well as the cross pollination? So all these things we have already discussed in the previous session. Those who were absent, hi Alicia, hi Zahid, how are you? Yes. So um जैसे if you were absent in the previous session, please do not worry, because all the videos will be available in the YouTube channel of Swiflearn. Okay, so just go through the recorded session. Okay, so that you will get to know all about the pollination. Now आज हम सेशन में जो डिस्कस करने वाले हैं दैट इज द फर्टिलाइजेशन. हाउ बेसिकली फर्टिलाइजेशन टेक्स प्लेस इन द फ्लावरिंग प्लांट. वी विल डिस्कस अबाउट दैट. तो देखते हैं हम आज कौन से टॉपिक या फिर सब टॉपिक के ऊपर डिस्कस करेंगे. फर्स्टली वी विल डिस्कस अबाउट द डेफिनेशन ऑफ फर्टिलाइजेशन. फर्टिलाइजेशन होता क्या है, whether it is only taking place in the plants or animal. What do you think? You can also share your doubt or your like information whatever you have basically in the chat box. Okay, और आपको पता है ना कि जो सबसे ज्यादा आंसर देंगे he or she will be the student of the session and I will write your name on the screen at the end of the session. Fine. चलो तो हम आज फर्टिलाइजेशन क्या है ये डेफिनेशन देखेंगे एंड देन वी विल मूव ऑन टू द प्रोसेस ऑफ फर्टिलाइजेशन, हाउ दिस फर्टिलाइजेशन टेक्स प्लेस इन द फ्लावरिंग प्लांट्स, right? Then we will move on to the different types of fertilization. Double fertilization, a very important part of this chapter is the double fertilization. Believe me, you will get a question of 3 marks or 5 marks from this topic. And then we will move on to the triple fusion and what happened to the different floral parts after the process of fertilization. ठीक है, तो let us start with today's topic. Before that, let me ask you one question. Do you think, do you have any sort of allergy? Have you ever felt any sort of allergic reaction in your due to anything? It can be due to any sort of food, it can be due to any sort of dust. एलर्जी भी होता है या फिर कोई भी छोटा छोटा पार्टिकल्स का एलर्जी आपको कभी हुआ है? यस, थिंक एंड टेल मी क्विकली. मुझे तो होता है बहुत डस्ट एलर्जी. अगर हम कोई पॉल्यूटेड एरिया में जाते हैं या फिर इफ देयर इज मोर डस्ट पार्टिकल्स इन द एटमॉस्फेयर देन व्हाट हैपेंस, आई स्टार्ट स्नीजिंग अगेन एंड अगेन, राइट? हैव यू एवर felt like that? Yes. So similar type of allergy, do you know that it also happen with the due to the pollen grains? तो ये pollen grains जो flowers में रहते हैं, this also trigger sometimes the allergic reaction. It vary करता है. It never happens to all the human being, but in some human being they cannot tolerate the pollen grains and what happens, they start sneezing, watery of eyes takes place. Okay, the water comes out from the eyes, so this type of reaction starts taking place. Okay, so this pollen grain is having some disadvantages also, right? Like this, the allergic reaction. But do you know what is the main importance of the pollen grain for the plant? ये डिसएडवांटेज के साथ साथ एडवांटेजेस तो बहुत सारे हैं. आप कोई भी एक एडवांटेज बोल सकते हो? यस श्यामल. श्यामल, यू कैन ऑल्सो शेयर कि कौन से मेन प्रोसेस में ये पॉलन ग्रेन्स हेल्प करते हैं इन केस ऑफ द प्लांट. एंड डेफिनेटली इट विल बी द रिप्रोडक्टिव प्रोसेस. यस, do you agree with me? Reproductive process में तो definitely help करते हैं, but when this pollen grains are going from the anther to the stigma, that is the very first step of the reproduction process and this process is known as the pollination. तो हमने already pollination के बारे में last session में पढ़ लिया. वी हैव ऑलरेडी गॉट एन आइडिया. तो हम आज थोड़ा सा पॉलिनेशन के साथ साथ फर्टिलाइजेशन में भी फोकस करेंगे एंड बोथ ऑफ देम विल बी सक्सेसफुल व्हेन द टोटल सेक्सुअल रिप्रोडक्शन टेक्स प्लेस इन द प्लांट बॉडी विल बी सक्सेसफुल, राइट? सो दीज आर द बेसिक two main steps of the sexual reproduction in flowering plants. Now let us see one video which will show you how sexual reproduction will take place in the flowering plant. Okay?
In this video, we will be looking at sexual reproduction in plants. Did you know that there are an estimated 390,900 plant species known to science? This diversity of plant species is in part due to sexual reproduction. In plants, sexual reproduction is carried out in the flowers. The flowers contain the sexual organs. Let's start with labeling the different parts of a flower. The petals and the sepals help protect the flower bud and can be brightly colored or scented to attract pollinators. The stem and the receptacle are the parts that connect the flower to the rest of the plant. The stamen is the male part of the flower. It consists of the anther, where pollen is produced, and the filament, which is the stalk that supports the anther. These structures are responsible for the production and the positioning of pollen, the male gamete. The female part of the flower is called the carpel, and this consists of three parts: the stigma, a sticky landy for pollen, the style, where the pollen grain descends, and the ovary, where the female gametes or sex cells are located. Within the ovary, ovules produce female gametes. So how does pollination work? Pollination is a transfer of pollen from the male anther of one flower to the female stigma of another. Flowers can be pollinated in different ways, by wind and water, or by pollinators such as insects, birds, and other animals. Flowers pollinated by pollinators are structurally different from those pollinated by wind or water. Look at the differences in size, scent, and color of the petals, and the positioning of the stamen and style. Here are some key differences. Why do you think they are different? Did you know that pollinators are very important to our food supply? They pollinate plants that are responsible for bringing us 1 out of every 3 bites of food. Once a plant has been pollinated, fertilization can occur. Fertilization results in the production of seeds. A mature pollen grain containing 2 male sex cells has landed on the female stigma of the same species. The pollen grain grows a pollen tube that goes down the female style to the ovary, where it enters through an opening called the micropyle. The male sex cells travel from the pollen grain down to the pollen tube to the female ovule. Here, one male sex cell fuses with the female egg, fertilizing it. This develops into a seed. The other male sex cell attaches to 2 cells in the embryo sac, forming an endosperm. This provides the starchy food for the seed to grow. The ovary enlarges and becomes a fruit, surrounding the internal seeds. The fruit and seeds are dispersed in many ways, some even by humans, where they will again grow into a new plant under the correct conditions, completing the long cycle of sexual reproduction in plants. So there we have sexual reproduction in plants. Pollination has to happen before fertilization. The male pollen is produced in the anther, where it is then dispersed during pollination. The female parts of the flower are the stigma, style, and the ovary.
Please like and share our videos with your friends. If you have any questions that
Yes. So you have already got an idea what is the pollination process, right? Yes. Now, let us move on to the structure of the flower now. So what are the different structure of the flower we will see? Okay, so as you already know that the pollination takes place as well as the fertilization takes place in the flowering plant. So you have already studied about the different groups of the plants, right? So in the different groups of the plants, the flowering plants come under which group? As you already know, they are the angiosperms, right? Now in the angiosperms, where the flowers are coming, and after the flower the development of the fruit happen, here the sexual reproduction takes place. And here in the sexual reproduction, all the all the parts of the flower are very much important for the process of reproduction. अभी कुछ कुछ फ्लावर का पार्ट्स जो स्टेराइल रहता है वो डायरेक्टली फर्टिलाइजेशन में या फिर रिप्रोडक्शन प्रोसेस में हेल्प नहीं करता, पर दे बेसिकली और indirectly they help in the process of the reproduction. So before going to the process of fertilization, let us now first see what are the different parts of the flower. So as you already know that there are 4 main parts of the flower which are present. Can you anybody tell me what are the main 4 parts of the flower quickly in the chat box? How can you say that what are the 4 main parts of a flower? So over here I'm showing you one 3D model of the flower. you can see that it is the flower which is already dissected half. Okay, so half dissection has taken place, and you can see the large petals. These are known as the corolla or the petals, which are brightly colored, beautifully attractive petals of the flowers, which we see in case of the rose. It can be the uh, red color or yellow color, the brightly beautifully color of the petals, which generally attracts the insects or attracts the different pollinators, right? Now coming to the second thing which we can see over here are the very small leaf like structure at the base of the flower. Can you see? Can you name what is these, what are these called? Yes, they are known as the calyx, or we can see call them as the sepals. Yes, so these are the sepals, these are the petals. Now coming to the third thing which are coming under the male reproductive structure, that is the stamen. So this is the male reproductive structure under which we can see the two main structure. You can see at the above there is a bulge like structure which are known as the anther, and this stalk like structure is known as the filament. So the anther and the filament will come under the male part, right? So within the anther the pollen grains are formed, and from this anther to the stigma of the same flower or the different flower, pollination will take place, right? Now let's move on to the next part, which is the female reproductive part. तो सबसे ऊपर फीमेल रिप्रोडक्टिव पार्ट में क्या रहता है? स्टिग्मा. After stigma, you can see this stalk which is known as the style, and at the base you can see this bulge like structure which are known as the ovary. So stigma, style and ovary are the three main parts of the pistil, which are pistil we also call as the carpel, and together all the pistil generally we know call as the gynoecium. This is the biological word of the female reproductive structure of a flower. ठीक है, तो मेल रिप्रोडक्टिव स्ट्रक्चर हो गया स्टेमन और फीमेल रिप्रोडक्टिव स्ट्रक्चर हो गया पिस्टल. अभी ये पिस्टल में क्या क्या रहता है? You already know this is the stigma, style and ovary, and within the ovary you can see that very small ovules are present, right? So these are the very small ovules. Very good. What is your name? Science Cyclopedia. Yes, stigma, style and ovary are the three main parts of the female reproductive structure within the plant, and you can see that the it is totally attached with the branch of the structure, branch of the plant with the stalk which is known as the pedicel. So this is nothing, just a 3D view of the flower. So before going to the pollination fertilization process, you have to know about the structure of the flower very very detail, right? So let us now move back to the uh, slides. So as you already know that the flowering plant, or if we talk about the complete flower, they have both the female and the male reproductive structure. Yes, so definitely they will also have the male and female gametes. So the female gamete will be definitely present within the ovules, and the male gametes will be present within the pollen grains. Do you agree with me? Yes. So the pollen grains, when they are forming on the anther, they are carrying the male gamete, and the ovule within which the female gamete is present, which we generally call as the egg. Okay, so this fusion of the male gamete and the female gamete will take place, which will give you the process of fertilization. Fine. So we already know that how pollination happens. That is nothing but the transfer of the male, the transfer of the pollen grains from the male structure, that is the anther, to the female structure, that is the stigma, is known as pollination. Simple as that. Okay. अभी हम फोकस करेंगे फर्टिलाइजेशन कैसे होता है, मतलब सेक्सुअल रिप्रोडक्शन में फर्टिलाइजेशन कैसे होता है प्लांट में. Okay, and as you already know what is fertilization, it's almost similar to in case of both plants and animal, that is the male gamete will fuse with the female gamete to form the zygote. So zygote, you already know that it is the very first cell of a new generation. Yes, yes Ayush, thank you very much. So zygote is nothing, it is a one cell structure which is formed after the fusion of the male gamete with the female gamete. ओके तो हमारे बॉडी में मेल गैमेट कौन से रहता है, मतलब ह्यूमन बीइंग में द मेल गैमेट इज प्रेजेंट विद इन द male body, right, which is known as the sperm, and the female gamete is present or formed in the female body, which is known as ovum or egg, right. Similarly, plants may be male gamete or female gamete alag se hota hai. Male gamete is present within the pollen grain and female gamete is present, which is known as the ovum, or generally we call it as the egg. ठीक है. Now this fusion of the male gamete and the female gamete is known as fertilization, and this is nothing but a physico-chemical process. The chemical process हम क्यों बोल रहे हैं? Because during this fertilization or the formation of the pollen tube, going of the pollen grains or the nucleus towards the ovule, whatever will take place, everything need the different types of enzymes. Okay, so all these enzymes will help in the process of whole fertilization in this plant body. So that is why it is known as the physico-chemical process, and the complete series of process will happen to form the zygote. और zygote के बाद वो क्या form करेगा? Seed form करेगा. ठीक है, चलो हम नेक्स्ट स्टेप में देखते हैं कि फ्लावर प्ले अ वेरी सिग्निफिकेंट रोल. कैसे? बिकॉज फ्लावर ही तो सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट रिप्रोडक्टिव स्ट्रक्चर है फ्लावरिंग प्लांट का, राइट. सो वी कैन से दैट फ्लावर इज द रिप्रोडक्टिव स्ट्रक्चर ऑफ द प्लांट, और फ्लावर के अंदर ही रहता है मेल एंड फीमेल पार्ट्स, और मेल और फीमेल पार्ट प्रोड्यूस करता है मेल और फीमेल गैमेट. नाउ अभी ये मेल और फीमेल गैमेट फ्यूज करने के बाद क्या होगा? zygote formation होगा. अभी zygote formation कहाँ होगा? This will all happen within the ovule. I will show you the structure and definitely I will tell you how within the ovule this zygote formation is taking place. और इसके साथ साथ और कुछ formation भी हो रहा है, ये नहीं, that will also I will explain. Now, in this course of fertilization, the male gamete and female gamete will be fertilized, and before that this pollination will take place. और ये pollination थोड़ा सा depend करता है external agent के ऊपर. कौन कौन pollination में help करते हैं? Honey bees, birds, bat, butterflies, sometimes we also, right. And also it depends upon the wind and water, right. Now when the pollination is taking place or before pollination also, there are certain changes which takes place within the ovule. हम अभी ये ovule के structure में focus करेंगे. Okay, so this is the ovule which is present within the ovary. You already know the ovary is the basal structure. If I draw the female structure only, so we already know that the pollen grain comes and sit on the स्टिग्मा. सो अभी इस को हम स्टिग्मा कहते हैं. Then the path through which the pollen tube will be formed, this path is known as this structure is known as the style, and the bulge like structure or the oval structure we generally call it as the ovary. Okay, stigma, style and ovary will come under. Very good, yes beta. So wind, insect, animal for pollination में help करते हैं. So they will all come under the female reproductive structure, that is nothing but the carpel. We generally call it as the carpel or pistil. अभी ovary के अंदर कौन है? Ovule है. Okay, this is the ovule which is present inside the ovary. हम ये ovule को थोड़ा सा माइक्रोस्कोप के अंदर देखेंगे अभी. ठीक है. So in each ovule कैसा दिखने में रहता है? You can see that the whole ovule is surrounded by two-layered structure which is known as the integument. This is the outer integument and this one is the inner integument. So outermost structure को हम कहते हैं integument, और ये integument is a little bit discontinuous in this end. Can you see there is the structure where integument is discontinuous, and this structure is known as micropyle. ये structure में integument नहीं रहता. क्यों? Because after the formation of the pollen tube, the pollen nuclei will, in general cases, the pollen nuclei or the pollen grain nucleus will enter through this end. This end is known as the micropylar end. Okay, and this point or the way, or we can say the opening, is known as the micropyle. ठीक है. अभी just inside the integument there is another layer which we call it as the nucellus. Okay, basically this nucellus provide the nutrition to the growing embryo sac. Okay, into the growing embryo we can also say they provide the nutrition to the egg, ताकि वो egg cell will be very much good with a good amount of nutrients and they can grow well. ओके, अभी हम फोकस करेंगे इसके अंदर कौन रहता है. यू कैन सी ओवर हियर this oval structure within which the different cells we can find. This structure is known as the embryo sac. ओके, तो ये एम्ब्रियो सैक में आपको क्या लगता है कितना सेल्स रह सकते हैं. You can see that 1, 2, 3 at the top end, 1, 2, 3 at the bottom, and 2 in the middle, right? So together 3 plus 3, 6 plus 2, 8 cells रहता है. And basically ये 8 cells में है से भी ये बीच में जो middle में जो दो cells रहता है वह always remain in a fused structure. So there will be two nucleus. So two nucleus will carry the two sets of chromosomes and but the cells are fused with each other. तो हम ये 8 cell ना बोल के हम 7 cell भी बोल सकते हैं. So this is nothing but a 7 cell structure but having how many nucleus? 8 nucleus. ओके, तो ये ऊपर 3 सेल में 3 न्यूक्लियस, नीचे 3 सेल में 3 न्यूक्लियस और बीच में जो दोनों सेल फ्यूज्ड होके एक सेल बन गया इसमें भी 2 न्यूक्लियस रहता है. तो टोटल 8 न्यूक्लिएटेड 7 cell structure is present within the embryo sac. Up to this much totally clear. This structure is very much important. You have to understand this very carefully because ये structure आपको drawing diagram में भी आते हैं. Okay, so try to practice this diagram. Now we will try to understand what are these cells known as within the embryo sac. So let us first see the three main cells which are present at the top. Okay, so these three cells are known as the antipodal cells. Very important. These three cells are known as the antipodal cells. बीच में जो दोनों सेल फ्यूज होके रहता है, these cells are known as the polar nuclei और secondary nuclei भी हम कहते हैं sometimes. ओके, पोलर और द सेकेंडरी न्यूक्लियाई. और ये जो नीचे 3 सेल्स है इनमें से द 2 सेल्स एट द 2 एंड, ये दोनों सेल्स जो ऐसे गार्ड करके रख रहे हैं ये बीच में मिडिल सेल को, ये दोनों सेल्स को हम साइनर्जिड्स कहते हैं. What are they called? They are known as the synergids, and the most important middle cell is known as egg cell. This is the female gamete. Up to this much clear? तो इसी को हम egg cell या फिर ovum भी कहते हैं. हम plant में generally egg this word को use करते हैं. Egg word को use करते हैं. Up to this much clear? Yes. So we have already come to know about what are the names of the cells which are present within the embryo sac. The first three ऊपर रहता है antipodal cell, नीचे 3 रहता है उनमें से the 2 synergids और बीच में रहता है egg cell. Yes, very good science cyclopedia. What is your actual name? ओके, एंड बीच में जो 2 सेल्स फ्यूज होके रहता है these are known as the polar nuclei or the secondary nuclei. Clear? So at the center of the nucellus we have already seen that embryo sac is present. और embryo sac कैसे structure है? 7 cell structure but 8 nucleated structure. ऊपर रहता है antipodal cell, नीचे रहता है synergids and the egg cell और बीच में रहता है 2 polar nuclei. Now we will see how the fertilization takes place within this structure. So this is the structure of the flower. You already have an idea कि when the anther is present in the stamen, so anther से filament anther में produce होता है pollen grain and इधर से जाता है stigma में which is known as the pollination, and after pollination what will happen we will study now. So how this fertilization will take place? As you already know, let me try to draw another stigma. तो मान लो कि ये एक स्टिग्मा है and this is the style and at the base this one is the ovary. ठीक है? Yes. So ovary के अंदर कौन बैठ के रहता है? The ovule having all the 8 cells. Synergids बीच में रहता है egg और इधर रहता है और एक synergids. Right? Now when the pollen grain will come and fuse on it तो बहुत सारे pollen grains ही come आ जा सकते हैं एंड फ्यूज कर सकते हैं पर only one pollen grain will be able to form the pollen tube और ये जो pollen tube एक बार उधर बन गया तो it will stop the formation of the pollen tube of any other pollen grain. ठीक है अभी ये pollen grain form कैसे होगा basically if you see think about the structure of the pollen grain they have the double membrane structure ऊपर रहता है exine और नीचे रहता है this is the exine and this one is known as the intine. So these are the two layers of the pollen grain और pollen grain में के अंदर रहता है the nucleus. ठीक है तो when the pollen grain will come the exine will be wear off and the intine will start forming the pollen tube और ये pollen tube से कौन जाएगा the two nucleus or the male gametes okay the two male gametes will enter and it will finally enter through the micropylar end always remember commonly या फिर मोस्ट कॉमन केसेस में क्या होता है माइक्रोपाइलर एंड से वो मेल गैमेट्स एंटर करते हैं ओव्यूल के अंदर अप टू दिस मच क्लियर यस ओके नाउ लेट अस मूव ऑन टू द स्ट्रक्चर ऑफ द ओव्यूल सो ओव्यूल में तो मूव कर गया अभी मूव करने के बाद व्हाट विल दे फॉर्म see there are two male gametes okay one and two male gametes will enter into the ovule through the micropylar end this end is known as the micropylar end क्योंकि वो opening को हम micropyle कहते हैं okay so they will enter inside the ovule and one male gamete will fuse with the egg okay one will fuse with the egg and another will fuse with the secondary nuclei okay so ये जो secondary nuclei से या फिर polar nuclei से fuse कर रहे हैं अभी ये ऑलरेडी polar nucleus तो 2n थे तो इसके साथ और एक मेल गैमेट का 1n ऐड हो गया तो कितना n वो बन जाएगा 3n बन जाएगा 3n मतलब 3 sets of chromosomes will be there and this type of fusion is known as the triple fusion so one male gamete will fuse with the polar nuclei and another male gamete will fuse with the egg to form the zygote as which takes place in नेचुरली जो सेक्सुअल रिप्रोडक्शन में होता है फर्टिलाइजेशन और ये जाइगोट फॉर्मेशन करने का प्रोसेस को हम सिनगैमी कहते हैं एंड ये पोलर न्यूक्लियाई के साथ जब वो फ्यूज हो रहा है दिस वी कॉल एज द ट्रिपल फ्यूजन क्लियर है सो यू कैन सी दैट देयर आर टू मेल गैमेट्स ठीक है how many men gametes are there two male gametes are there one is fusing with the egg to form the zygote and another male gamete is fusing with the polar nuclei to form the trian structure which is known as the endosperm so it will form the endosperm of the flower and this endosperm is nothing but it will help to produce or supply the nutrients to the growing embryo and that then only the growing embryo will be बहुत strong and rough and tough and we will get that embryo as the fruit all the flowering parts which are present within the ovary and the ovule will become the fruit and the seeds ओके, सो दिस मेकेनिज्म, ये जो दो बार फ्यूज हो रहा है, एक बार एग के साथ और एक बार पोलर न्यूक्लियाई के साथ, दिस फ्यूजन इज, दैट इज व्हाई नोन एज द डबल फर्टिलाइजेशन. So what do you mean by double fertilization? How it takes place? This question is very much important in your examination. ये 5 marks के लिए आ सकते हैं. Along with the diagram, you have to give a proper explanation. क्लियर है. सो व्हाट विल हैपन आफ्टर द फर्टिलाइजेशन? फर्टिलाइजेशन होने के बाद जो ओवरी है वो बन जाएगा फ्रूट, और जो ओवरी के अंदर ओव्यूल्स होता है वो बन जाएगा सीड्स. ओके, एंड दिस सीड्स जनरली वी विल ईट द फ्रूट एंड वी विल जस्ट डिस्पर्स द सीड ओवर हियर एंड देयर, एंड ये सीड्स क्या होगा, when they will get the proper condition, it will grow into a new plant, it will germinate into a new plant. up to this much clear कि कैसे flowering plant में reproduction हो रहा है? Yes, so you can see that the growth of the ovule takes place and finally 8 cell structure it has taken place. Yeah, now let's move on to the types of fertilization. Based upon कहाँ से ये pollen tube enter करेंगे within the ovule, we can classify the fertilization into 3 main types. What are they? Porogamy, chalezogamy and mesogamy. ये porogamy क्या है? This is the most common type of fertilization when the pollen tube will go and enter through the micropylar end. So through the micropyle जब ये pollen grain या फिर we can say the male gametes enter करते हैं ovule में, this type of fertilization is basically known as the porogamy. नेक्स्ट इज द चैलेजोगैमी. चैलेजोगैमी मतलब है वो जो पोलन ग्रेन या फिर मेल स्ट्रक्चर डायरेक्टली चैलेजोगैमी या फिर this end where the antipodal cells are present, this end is known as chalazal end. Okay, so इसी direction में जब वो enter करेंगे within the ovule, when the male gametes enter inside the ovule through directly on the top या फिर chalazan end से, then we will generally call this type of fertilization as the chalezogamy. Okay, ये generally we can find it in the casuarina species of plants. Fine. And now let us move on to the third type of the fertilization. This is known as mesogamy. Mesogamy हम generally देखते हैं cucurbita family का plants में, जैसे pumpkin बोलो या फिर कोई भी gourd, ये ridge gourd, bitter gourd, any other type of gourd, bottle gourd, वो जो भी हम खाते हैं, ये सारे gourd plant में generally mesogamy होता है. ये mesogamy क्या होता है? They over here we can see that pollen tube formation होने के बाद ये directly integument से या फिर ये बीच में से middle portion से ये ovule में enter कर जाते हैं. ओके, सो ऊपर से एंटर करते हैं इन केस ऑफ द चैलेजोगैमी, नीचे से एंटर करते हैं इन केस ऑफ द पोरोगैमी, और बीच में से या फिर मिडल से एंटर करते हैं इन केस ऑफ द मेसोगैमी. हैव यू गॉट एन आइडिया what are the different parts or different types of the fertilization takes place in flowering plants? Yes. Now, after entering inside the ovule, definitely the fertilization will take place, and the fertilization is known as the double fertilization. क्यों? क्योंकि दो मेल गैमेट होता है और दो मेल गैमेट दो बार फ्यूज करेंगे, एक बार फ्यूज करेंगे एग को, which will form the zygote, and second male gamete will fuse with the polar nuclei, which will form the endosperm. So 3n number of chromosomes will be present within the endosperm, or 2n number of chromosome will be present within the zygote. क्योंकि zygote में ये जो मेल गैमेट है वो एक n कैरी कर रहे हैं और जो एग था वो भी एक n कैरी कर रहे थे, तो दो n मिलके 2n हो जाएगा. yes, the diploid cell it will be formed, so the diploid zygote will be formed, and the triploid cell will be formed, which generally we call it as the triple fusion. Up to this much totally clear hai, I guess. Now, why this known as the double fertilization? This question is very much important. You have to give a proper answer कि double fertilization हम क्यों बोल रहे हैं flowering plants में. ओके, सो दिस इज अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट क्वेश्चन. एंड ऑल्सो 1 मार्क के लिए या फिर 2 मार्क्स के लिए आपको ये क्वेश्चन भी मिल सकते हैं कि व्हाट डू यू मीन बाय ट्रिपल फ्यूजन. तो आप क्या बोलेंगे? ट्रिपल फ्यूजन इज नथिंग बट व्हेन द टू पोलर न्यूक्लियाई आर ऑलरेडी प्रेजेंट विद इन द at the middle of the ovule. So what will happen? The male gamete will come and sit on it and it will fuse with it. So what is happening? The tree A structure is formed, which we generally call as the endosperm, and this three structures or three nuclei are fusing, and that is why it is known as the triple fusion. आपको पता है ट्रिपल का मतलब 3 है, डबल का मतलब 2 है, मोनो के मतलब 1 है. तो 3 न्यूक्लियाई फ्यूज हो रहा है, इसीलिए इसको ट्रिपल फ्यूजन बोल रहे हैं. Okay, and what it is forming? It is basically forming the endosperm, which will give the nutrition to the growing embryo. Up to this much, any doubt, beta? Anybody, any doubt? Yes? If you have any doubt, please write it in the chat box. चलो, हम अभी देखेंगे कि ये फर्टिलाइजेशन हो जाने के बाद जो भी फ्लोरल पार्ट्स रहता है, व्हाट विल हैपन टू दोज फ्लोरल पार्ट्स. ये कैलिक्स, कोरोला, एंड्रेशियम, गाइनेशियम में क्या क्या चेंजेस आने वाले हैं. So definitely we will see that the petals, stamen, style, stigma ये सब झड़ जाएंगे. Okay, they will dry it off and they will fall off from the plant body. वो detach हो जाएंगे. सिर्फ कौन रह जाएंगे? Mainly the ovary. And ovary, वो जो female structure का ovary है, वो कन्वर्ट हो जाने जाएगा फ्रूट में, और उसके अंदर जो छोटा छोटा ओव्यूल्स थे वो कन्वर्ट हो जाएगा सीड्स में. ओके, एंड ऑल्सो वी विल सी दैट द कैलिक्स, वो जो छोटा छोटा लीफी लाइक स्ट्रक्चर है, वो ड्राई हो जाते हैं. समटाइम्स इट रिमेन्स अटैच्ड विद द प्लांट. We can see in the tomato is also we will consider as the fruit, right? So tomato में आपने कभी देखा ऊपर ऐसे कैलिक्स रह जाते हैं एंड नीचे ये हम टोमेटो देखते हैं, खाते हैं जो, राइट? सो उधर समटाइम्स ये कैलिक्स ड्राइड ऑफ होके रह सकते हैं, और समटाइम्स इन अदर प्लांट्स it can also dry up and it can also fall off from the plants. Clear? So these are the conversions of the flower to the fruits. Flower से fruit होने में क्या क्या conversion होता है? देखो, the flower का जो ovary रहता है, it will become fruit. Ovule will become the seed. Integument जो रहता है, it will become the seed coat. You already know a hard seed coat is present in the mango. यस, मैंगो फ्रूट आप जब खाते हो वो सीड कोट को छोड़ के हम सिर्फ पल्प खाते हैं, राइट? वी ओनली ईट द फ्रूट, ओके, and we just throw the seed as well as the outer covering that is made up of the integument, which is known as the seed coat. Clear hai? Then the wall of the ovary will become the wall of the fruit. Endosperm nucleus continuously nutrition देते रहेंगे embryo को, and then the petals, stigma, style ये सारे dry up हो जाएगा and fall off from the plants. And the sepals sometimes they present as a very small leaf like structure, जैसे I have already drawn and shown you in the tomato, या फिर वो झड़ भी सकते हैं. Okay, up to this much clear hai? Yes. So this is all about the chapter. Let us now discuss some of the question answer. Let me see who can give me the correct answer. So answer is already given over here, that which is true about the seed. आपको क्या लगता है कौन से characteristic feature seed के लिए true है? First is saying it has a double-walled seed coat. Secondly, it develops from the pollen grains. Thirdly, it develops from the ovule. और last option में दे रखे हैं कि both A and C both are correct for the seed. What do you think? Both A and C? क्योंकि seeds का तो seed coat भी रहता है and it basically develops from the ovule. है ना? Yes. Now let's move on to the second question. Quickly tell me the name of the parts of the ovary which gives rise to this seed, fruits and fruit wall. Quickly give me the answer in the chat box. Seed कहाँ से बनते हैं, fruit कहाँ से बनते हैं and fruit wall कहाँ से बनते हैं? Yes. From where do we get all this structure of the fruit? Quickly. Yes, we can say seed कहाँ से बनते हैं? From which part of the flower do we get the seed? Yes. Quickly give me the answer. Seed कहाँ से बनते हैं? Fruit कहाँ से बनते हैं? And fruit wall कहाँ से बनते हैं? Yes. So seed basically is nothing but the ovule. The ovule of a flower becomes the seed later on, right? Then fruit, the pulpy fruit कहाँ से बनते हैं? The ovary of the flower after fertilization, it will become the fruit. Yes, and fruit wall कहाँ से बनेगा? Definitely the ovarian wall. ओवरी का जो वॉल होता है वही फ्रूट वॉल बन जाएगा. Yes, understood? Chalo, let's move on to the next question. So you have to give the one word answer over here. So first is a flower having both male and female parts. कौन से फ्लावर में हम both male and female parts हमको मिलते हैं? Yes, which flower generally contain both the male and the female parts? Quickly give me the answer. Yes, science cyclopedia. Integument, which is becoming the integument? It is basically integument is becoming the seed coat. ठीक है? Yes, very good. Correct answer is bisexual flower. Very good. Second question का answer दो. When the pollen grains of the flower reach the stigma of the same flower, what do we call it? Yes. What do we call this? When Okay, yes, hibiscus flower is also a very good example of a bisexual flower. Exactly. Now, coming to the second question, so pollen grain from a flower is reaching to the same flower. सेम फ्लावर के एंथर से स्टिग्मा में जब जा रहे हैं तो कौन सी टाइप का पॉलिनेशन हम इसको बोलेंगे? वेरी गुड आंसर. यस, दिस इज नोन एज द सेल्फ पॉलिनेशन. Now let's move on to the third question. When the maturation time of the reproductive part in a flower is different, मतलब इधर जब androecium और gynoecium different time में mature करते हैं, different time में जब mature करते हैं, इस characteristic feature को हम क्या बोलते हैं? Yes, remember we have already studied in the previous session. What do we call it? It is one of the condition which favor the cross pollination. Yes, do you remember? So what do we call that character? When the maturation time of the reproductive parts of a flower is different, मतलब अलग से female और अलग से male different time में जब mature करते हैं, we generally call it as the dichogamy. Okay, quickly write it down, note it down. We generally call this characteristic feature as dichogamy. Okay. Let's move on to the fourth one. When the stigma and the anther do not grow up to the same height. Stigma का और anther का height different होता है, ऊपर नीचे होता है. तो which favors basically ये cross pollination में help करते हैं. तो this characteristic feature को हम क्या बोलते हैं? Quickly. Yes, science cyclopedia. Quickly tell me when this stigma and anther grow in different height. We generally call it as the heterostyly. Okay, this condition is known as the heterostyly, which favor the cross pollination in the flowering plants. Okay, now let's move on to the pollination of flower by insects को क्या बोलते हैं and the pollination of flower by birds को क्या कहते हैं. We have already studied about this in the previous session. Remember, insects मतलब हम जैसे insect के study को entomology कहते हैं, तो definitely pollination अगर insect करेंगे तो इसको हम क्या बोलेंगे? Entomophily कहेंगे. Okay, entomophily. This is known as entomophily. और हम bird के study जब करते हैं तो this branch of science is known as ornithology. Do you know that? So similarly ये pollination जब bird से होगा हम क्या कहेंगे इसको? Ornithophily. Fine. Up to this much clear? So this type of question may come in your examination. Okay, so 1 marks में one word question आ सकते हैं ऐसे. So very good. Yes, very good. Science Cyclopedia, you are totally correct. That is entomophily is by insect and ornithophily is by birds. So this type of question may come in your school examination. Quickly tell me the answer of this question. What happened to the following parts of the um, flower and fruit? Flower basically after fertilization. Ovules का क्या होगा? Calyx का क्या होगा? Petals का क्या होगा? And stamens का क्या होगा? Quickly. So ovules will become the seed. Yes. Calyx will become the very small like leafy structure and dried off. Petals will fall off and stamens will also fall off. Right? Yes. Do you remember? Now, next, let us discuss one or two broad question. What is the function of the pollen tube? So, pollen tube का function क्या होगा? Definitely, the pollen tube will grow when the pollen grain will come and fall on the stigma. तो इधर क्या होगा? The exine, okay? By breaking the exine, what will have the pollen tube will start growing and it will go towards the ovary. After reaching the ovary, through the micropyle, it will enter into the ovule. Very good. Your answer is totally correct, beta. Chalo. Let's move on to the next question. That is, what are the different parts shown over here in the label diagram? You have to identify 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so quickly identify the parts 1, 2, 3 as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in the chat box, and let us discuss the subjective parts of this question pehle, and then after getting the answer from you we will discuss the objective part. ठीक है, बी हम पहले डिस्कस कर लेते हैं कि what happened to the ovary. The ovary will become the fruit and ovule का क्या होगा? Ovule will become the seed. Simple, right? Now let's move on to the function of the synergies. Synergies का function क्या है? It will provide the nutrition to the egg. Egg cell को nutrition provide करेंगे and also definitely it will produce the different enzymes which will allow the male gametes to get inside the ovule. ठीक है? And what part does the stigma play in the process of fertilization? It's a very important part. That is, the stigma will play a very important part. That is, the pollen grain will come and sit on the stigma. Then after that, the pollen tube will be formed. And after the pollen tube will form, it will go towards the ovary. And finally, the male gamete will enter into the ovule. Clear hai? So let us see who have given me most of the answer. Science Cyclopedia has given me most of the answer. So let us discuss the labeled part also. First one, you can also already see over here. This one is nothing but the style. Number 2 is nothing but the pollen tube. Yeah. Number 3, you can see over here, it is nothing but the two cells it is showing. The two cells are known as the polar nuclei. Number 4 is nothing but the ovule. Number 5 are the three cells in the upper side of the ovule which are known as the antipodal cells. ऑलवेज रिमेंबर कि नीचे रहता है साइनर्जिड्स, ऊपर रहता है एंटीपोडल सेल, और एंटीपोडल सेल 3 इन नंबर होता है, साइनर्जिड्स 2 इन नंबर होता है, और दो साइनर्जिड्स के बीच में रहता है मेन एग सेल, okay, which will form the zygote after the fusion. ठीक है, so this is all about this chapter and let me give you one idea, one fact, that is ये जो हम tomato, brinjal, cucumber जो भी हम खाते हैं, these are all considered as the fruits. क्यों? Because they also contain the ovary which we basically eat, and they contain the seeds also. Okay, so let us see what we have already studied in today's session. We have studied about the fertilization of the plant, which is important, after which takes place after the pollination. It takes place within the ovary of the pistil or ovary of the carpel, we can also say. Then it is performed by the male and the female sexes. When they are fusing with each other, they form the zygote. Then this fertilization happen after pollination, and necessary development of the fruits and seeds takes place after the process of fertilization. Clear hai? So thanks a lot, thank you very much for staying with me. So today the student of the session, we can see he, I really don't know what is your actual name, so I'm writing the name which is showing in the chat box, that is Science Cyclopedia. Okay, so clap for him or her. So thank you for giving me most of the answers correctly and staying till the end. We will again meet in the next session. So before that, let me again remind you, whoever has not subscribed the channel, please subscribe it and press the bell icon so that you will never miss any of the update of the upcoming sessions. And we will again meet in next session. Do like, comment and share also. And